Steve, what's up, man? So good to see you as always.
Man, dude, I'll tell you what, before we even get into this, Ryan, I follow a lot of guys on Instagram and I have to tell you, man, you are the most informational father that I follow, man, and you're so consistent. So before we even get going on this, man, I just wanted to honor you for the father and the husband that you show up as on Instagram. But I've been blessed enough to be able to get to know you and do life with you, do some hard stuff with you before.
For
And
sure.
man, I just want to honor you before we get going, man, because I think you're a hell of a guy.
I appreciate that. The feeling is definitely mutual. I see you and your oldest Ace out there doing your workouts, doing your thing together, and I'm
Yeah,
like,
man.
man, this is exactly what the world needs. Like we're so inundated with business and entrepreneurship, and there's nothing
Mm,
wrong with that by any means. You and I are both
right, right.
entrepreneurs, but I just want to see dads turn to their sons. I want to see sons turn to their dads, and I want to see that connection forged. And you, my friend, are living it, which I love.
And yeah, thank you, man. Man, it's been an evolution. I mean, think about it, dude. We're young dads. How old is your oldest?
He's 12.
Yeah, so my oldest is 12 too. I thought they were about the same age. My son's about to be a teenager. I'm not even 40 yet. I had my son when I was 24 years old, and man, I've learned so much. I feel like the first 8 years of his life, I was really trying to figure out who I was.
Mm.
And then when you talk about, hey, man, I think you do such a great job, Steve. Dude, hey, man, you should have caught me like 4, 5, 6 years ago when I was like really in the middle of trying to figure out like who I am because I feel like that's a difficulty of a lot of men is like they want to be great fathers and they want to be great leaders, but I mean deep down they don't really like they're not okay with who they are and who what their identity is. And so how can you have like a family mission statement or a family mantra if you don't really have like truly have an identity for who you are and to be able to be comfortable with that. And I feel like a
What do
lot
you
of
think
men are
has
uneasy.
Yeah, oh, no doubt. But what do you think has changed for yourself? I certainly feel what you're saying for me personally as well. But
Yeah.
I'm really curious, what has changed in your life, whether it's personal work or extenuating circumstances that have made you feel more grounded in who you are, and then you're
Mhm.
more capable of serving your wife and children.
Yeah, I mean, there's no manual for being a dad. There's no manual for being a professional athlete and a dad. There's no manual for doing what you're doing right now. Like you literally are blazing your own path. And so, really, what I want to get to in mentioning that is, man, as I've evolved as a person, the thing that I believe that has changed the most in me, and really kind of like when you and I first connected, Ryan, I was really starting to go through a lot of that deep work, and for a lot of my life, I spent a lot of time working on the extrinsic things, meaning like I wanted to be able to achieve with my abilities because, man, dating back to like when I was 5 years old, and I know I'm skipping around a lot here, listeners, man. I'm honored you guys are sticking with me, but we will
No, it's
skip
good,
around
man. This
quite
is
a
the
bit.
stories we want to hear, so it's all good.
Yeah, because I've got ADHD, man. So we will go a couple places. But I mean, just kind of starting back at 5 years old is really when I started to kind of like form my identity and my worth. And I remember getting sent home from the principal's office the first 5 days in school just for different stuff, talking, pulling people's chair out and laughing, disrupting. Point is after that first week of school, it was the first I really realized, Ryan, that I was really different than everybody else, because of my extreme level of ADHD. Because I knew I was different than my brothers and my sister. That's apparent because you get to live with them. But it was the first exposure I had to a large group of people and realizing that I was like the alien in the group. And so it was kind of like at that form, I hate to say it, but I started to hate myself for being so much different than everybody else because I'd go to Sunday school and I'd make trouble. I'd go to school and I'd make trouble. We would go on car trips and I would make trouble. I couldn't sit still. And the only time like that overabundance of energy or that like ridiculous drive was celebrated was when I was playing sports. And so that was the place that made me feel like worthy. That was the place people were like, oh, Steve, you can't sit still and you're the busiest person out there. That's awesome. Great job. Keep going. And so that kind of like in my mind, it formed that, I created the story that I'm only worthy when I'm playing sports and when I'm achieving and when I'm winning. And so it really kind of formed a relationship with sports early on that ended up achieving greatness. And, I made some money and achieved championships and stuff like that. But from a little boy standpoint, one of the reasons I was able to have that much drive is like sports to me weren't just like for fun to compete. I felt like as a little boy, and even my mom will like, she mentioned this to me a couple of years ago when we were watching my son. She mentioned that when I played sports, I never smiled. Like I never celebrated wins, and I would get upset if we would lose, but I never celebrated wins because she always felt like I took it so seriously. But to me, it was life or death, because think about when you're a little boy and all you want to do is like make people notice you for a good reason, especially your dad. And my dad, just like most people's dads, that are our age, Ryan, we're old school. He was a Midwest dad. He wasn't a dad that like patted you on the head and said, I love you. Good morning, champion. Like, let's go up and be great today. Let's make the best of the rest of our life the best of our life. No, he was the type of dad that said, wake up, there's work to get done, and that's how I grew up. And so when I won games or when I achieved, because I believe my dad had that mindset, that was an expectation. So celebrate the wins. And this kind of mindset followed me all the way through, high school, college, pros. And I remember holding a Super Bowl trophy with my family. This is obviously many years later. I think I was 27. I remember holding a Super Bowl trophy and thinking, man, I've achieved everything every little boy would ever want to achieve. And I did it 47 miles from my hometown, right? And I know I'm going on a little bit of a rant here, but just be with me. So I'm from Terre Haute, Indiana, 47 miles from where my hometown is. I'm holding a Super Bowl trophy, and I broke the Super Bowl record for most punts inside the 20-yard line. I had the best game of my life and the biggest game of my life. And I mean, let's just say this, guys, I'm a punter. So it's really hard to like, at the end of the day, feel like you really influenced the outcome of the day.
Yeah, but come on, you're not just a punter. You were a badass punter at the same time.
Yeah, well, that's the deal. Like, you really have to be like the next level of that position, because that position doesn't have that much influence, right?
I mean, you weren't the quintessential punter that we all think of. All right, let's be real about this, which I do appreciate about you.
Yeah, thank you, man. I try to max out every area of my life, like our friend Milet says. And so point is like I had the best game of my life, and we've won a lot of games in my 10 years in the pros. I won a lot of games. There were several games that we won that I honestly didn't even touch the field. They would cut me a check for like $10,000, $20,000, $30,000 a week, when I was younger, and I wouldn't even play because I wasn't even the holder for field goals. So my point is I've been a part of teams that have won things, and I've never really felt like it was like important to me, that because I didn't feel like I changed the outcome of the game. But in this Super Bowl 46 against Tom Brady, I'll never forget it. My first punt of the game was from the 42-yard line. And man, that thing went up. It hit the ground on the 1-yard line. It didn't bounce forward. It didn't bounce left. It didn't bounce right. It didn't bounce backwards. It bounced straight up in the air. And my long snapper had enough time to run down there, down the ball at the 2-yard line. And then the very next play, Tom Brady drops back in the pocket, looks right, looks down the center of the field and see Justin Tuck coming at him. So he chucks the ball. They get an intentional grounding. So the first 2 points of the game were the play after my punt, and one of my best friends, and it was really kind of a validating point in my career as a man and as a football player, is Justin Tuck, our team captain, guys he's going to be in the Hall of Fame. And as soon as he got that intentional ground, he ran right over to the kicking net. I'll never forget him, like pulling me up off of the bench by my breastplate of my pads and like almost holding me up like a little baby. I'm a pretty big dude, right? Holding me up like a little baby. And he goes, dude, that was an alley-oop and you let me dunk it. You know what I mean? Essentially saying that punt set me up to be able to do what I just did. And he validated my worth to the team. And really, I kind of want to circle this all back to worth. The worth that I formed of myself as a little boy, and how I formed my worth predicated on what I could achieve or what I could provide. And so the game ended. We won 21-17, unfreaking believable. We beat Tom Brady. And I remember running across the field and then looking to find my parents and my son and my wife, my daughter in the crowd. And I remember pulling my son out of the crowd and holding him up. Confetti's coming down. It's, this is it, dude.
Yeah, man,
and I remember him saying, Daddy, we did it. We won it. And he was only 4, but then I put him down, and then instantly he was like, just wanted to play with the confetti. The championship part was over. But I'll never forget my family and bringing them up there on top of the stage and holding the Lombardi trophy. And this thing's freaking huge. And actually, hold on right here. Here's every player that wins. Every player that wins one has an opportunity to pay $21,000 and get a 3/4 size of it. So
I've touched that one, actually. Man. I've held that one in my hands right there, and my son has as well.
Yeah, man. So point is, man, I'm holding this trophy with my dad. I mean, this is your dad. You know, the dad that started coaching me at 4 years old and coached me all the way through up until when I went to college. He was my high school soccer coach. So my dad was a super devoted dad, but wasn't like a hyper affirming dad. My dad still has never told me like, hey, I'm proud of you. And so the point to kind of like getting into all of this is I never felt so good as seeing my dad hold that trophy, right? And then we go to the after party and my grandma and everybody's telling me how awesome I am and how great I did and all these things. Dude, I am freaking sky high because my love language as a little boy like that, my love language is words of affirmation. And like everybody's telling me how good I am and how wonderful I was. And the spotlight was on me. And, you know, it was 120 million people just watched that game. Literally, I couldn't have been higher, you know, and I've done a little bit of my life. I've done enough to know that there is not a drug that will make you feel better than the way that I felt in that moment when I was at that post Super Bowl party and Kenny Chesney's on the stage playing for only like 100 people, my mom, my dad, my grandma, my grandpa. And I remember telling my wife, because I've been dating my wife since pretty much I was 17 years old. I met her when I was on my official visit to the University of Illinois. So we've been together for 10 years at this point, and she's been with me through like the sloppy commenting on myself and blacking out and, you know, all the frat parties. And so I always said, man, if I ever win a Super Bowl, I'm going to get so trashed. Remember finishing my first beer, and then she's like, I'm going to go get you another beer. And that's the only time she's ever offered to go get me another beer. And I remember telling her, I don't want to feel like I look around. As soon as I left the after party, because in the NFL, they won't let even girlfriends or wives or anybody go back to your room for obvious reasons. You have to protect the integrity of the NFL. So I ended up sleeping by myself that night, left the post party at about 2:00. And I walk into my room in Indianapolis, Indiana. I remember going up to the window and looking down and seeing all of the people down there just like raging, having fun, wearing all types of different NFL jerseys. They were celebrating just that the Super Bowl happened, not that they played in it, not that they played the best game they've ever played, not that they played the best game they've ever played, set a Super Bowl record, and all of their family was there. None of that. They were just happy to be there. And I remember taking a deep breath, and it was like the first, you know, big breath that I took since I had been by myself. And I remember before I could even exhale out, Ryan, I just remember like a freaking wave of depression coming over me. Like, you got to be kidding me, man. Like, I feel like I did everything. All these boxes are checked that I thought like would fulfill me and make me happy and make me worthy and make me this or that. And I remember feeling the exact same. And so like you have these achievements that, and it was the reason it was depressing is because every time I feel like as men, we go out and we achieve something that we use the language, I'll be happy when. Well, when I can get here, and we put like a dollar amount on our bank account or a size house or a car or a size of a bicep or a body fat, like insert here, we continue to create these moments of I'll be happy. And every time we get to one of them and we don't feel good or we don't feel better about ourselves, we continue to push that rock higher. And so we continue to push the point of like happiness over the cognitive horizon. And so we just set up a hamster wheel of life where we continue to go out and achieve things. And the sick part is, Ryan, is the longer you go, the harder it is to get to these achievements. And the less that it gives you, the less it fuels you. And so the sacrifice is greater, the return is less. And that's why I believe that so many pro athletes, so many elite performers, so many guys that get to the top, and then when it's time to shift gears or recreate or evolve as a person, they struggle with that because their whole identity is this thing that they have formed for themselves. It's not
that's what I was going to say is
it's the skill outside of them.
Right. And that's what I was going to say is that must have been very difficult for you, where you wrapped up your identity in performing on the field to now, all right, I'm stepping away from the game. So what was that like for you when you finally left the game? You wrapped up your whole identity in there. You found your worth in being there and being a Super Bowl champion, an elite level athlete, and now you're not that anymore. Like one day earlier you are, one day later you're not.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a great question, Ryan. So like this happened in my 7th year in the NFL. So I ended up, and I had been on 4 other teams previous to that point. So I want all the listeners to understand that my career was not like roses up to this point. I had been cut by 3 teams. I had been cut by the Saints. I'd been cut by the Chiefs. I'd been cut by the Jags. I'd been cut by or actually not cut by the Jets. But the season before we won that Super Bowl, I broke an NFL record for the most punts inside the 20-yard line. And they said, no, we just don't want to renew your contract.
That was
and
for
so
the Jets?
It was, yeah, that was for the Jets.
Okay.
So there was a lot of adversity that led up to this point in my career. And so it was almost kind of like, it wasn't like the previous 6-7 years of my NFL career were like achievement after achievement after achievement. I'm like, oh, I'm so good, but I'm so empty. No, bro, I was getting my ass kicked. I was getting cut by teams. There was one time I got cut by the New Orleans Saints, and they left me in the visitors' locker room in the beneath the stadium of the Bank of America in Charlotte, North Carolina. So point to like mentioning all of those things to you guys, man, is man, I get it. Like I get where you guys are at. I understand like you probably made some achievements in your life and they didn't make you feel the way that you thought it would make you feel. And then you shift gears and you raise the bar higher and you thought like, hey, maybe I get to 10% body fat or $1 million in the bank account, I'll feel good. And then you get there and then it didn't do that thing for you. I understand exactly where you're at. But I believe that there is a way that you can construct a blueprint for your life where there's not guilt or shame about what happened in the past. And you can kind of step into a new identity and a new, when I came into to professional football, Ryan, there's a thing that happens and they put a piece of paper in front of you and it has the deliverables on it. It has a date on it. It has the owner, it has the commissioner, and it has the assistant manager on there. And you sign your name to that. And when you sign your name to that contract, you are agreeing to be these things for this team. And because of that, they will reward you with this money. And so when things really kind of shifted for me, it was really kind of about when you came into my life, Ryan. When I left the NFL, man, I really, really struggled. And it wasn't because I felt like my identity was so wrapped up in football. I actually walked away from football before I needed to walk away from football because I understood that there was nothing within sight of that game that was going to make me feel different about me. I knew there was something. Wow. It was almost kind of like I won the Super Bowl my 7th year, and then I played 3 more years trying to figure out what it was. Is there something still inside? Is it the Pro Bowl? Is it, should I well, you know, I won the Super Bowl, and my dad didn't say, I'm so proud of you. And my dad's a Christian. What about if I become like the most philanthropic guy in the NFL? Maybe I'll grab my dad's attention. Maybe he'll be proud of me. Then maybe that'll be the thing that'll make me feel good about me, right? Hey, guess what? I checked that box too, right? And I want you guys to hear me. I'm not bragging about myself. This was a depressed little boy that was so desperately trying to get it from his dad. So like, as I talk about these achievements that I've had, understand where it's coming from. It's coming from a little boy that just wanted to be loved. It's coming from a little boy that just wanted to be worthy. It's coming from a little boy that just wanted to fit in, right? And so I became the most philanthropic man in the NFL. There's an award for that. It's called the Walter Payton Man of the Year Award. And it's something you could get nominated for. And so point is I went out and did that. Still nothing from my dad. Went out and became the fittest man in the NFL, voted by the men in the NFL, not once, but 2 times. So think about this, 100, and I was 108 pounds as a freshman in high school.
Is that right?
And he is 108 pounds. My son is 12 and he's 130. So I was 5'8", 108 pounds. And because of like this thing that I formed in my mindset as a kid, that I'm only valuable unless I achieve and do things with myself or with my body. I'm not valuable, but what I can do can be valuable, and therefore I can be valuable. And so I ravenously pursued these different goals and was voted 2 times the fittest man in the NFL. That happened. And then you get to 10 years in the NFL, which is another achievement. That's a decade of pro sports.
Yeah, man.
I'm from Terre Haute, Indiana, man. People like me are not supposed to do
that
stuff
doesn't happen.
like this. And so that happens. And then still, and then at that point, I'm like, all right, man, I'm out. I'm out. So I chucked them the deuces. I went and accepted a job at Spike TV. I had my own TV show. I did ESPN radio. I did that for 1 year and just incredibly unfulfilled there. And so if you guys will notice, I'm bouncing from like one thing to one thing to one thing. And it wasn't for the money. It wasn't for the fame. Like, sure, those were things that were like beneficial. But looking back on it now, retrospectively, I was just looking to be happy, bro. I was just looking for an identity that felt good for me. And I want to circle all of this back, Ryan, really quickly to the pro contract. And when we talk about deliverables. And so when things really changed for me is when I created a contract for myself. And I said, if I can wake up every single day and just be these three things, not do these three things, be these three things, I know at the end of the day, when I'm brushing my teeth, I'm going to be proud of myself. And I feel like for men, that is the ultimate hardest thing for us to do in the galaxy of things that we do, is to be proud of ourselves. And so I just created a game that I knew I could win, because the game that I was playing, the hamster wheel that I was on, was going to kill me, man. It was literally going to kill me, because they were requiring more of an investment and I was getting less of a return. That is a recipe for killing yourself. So my point to this contract is, I just wrote down on a piece of paper, I am a man of integrity, honor, and accountability. So if you guys can hear me, and whatever your contract is to you, and I challenge you guys to create a contract for yourself, not a contract that you can win, but something that is going to sharpen you, something that is going to build on you day after day after day. And integrity is not something that you can wake up and do. And so this is why it was important to me. And I want you guys to understand the difference between being able to do something and being able to be something. I lived my whole life trying to do things, and I understood where that put me. It gave me a lot of achievements, but it didn't do anything for me. And so I wanted to create a game that was about me, personally developing me, because I understand if I improve me, everywhere that I go is going to be affected by what I do in myself. And so if I can wake up every day and be integrity, if I can wake up every day and be accountable, if I can wake up every day and be honorable, I know that my podcast will be great. I know that my supplement company is going to grow. I know that the men that I coach are going to get the greatest version of me. And so I feel like we create like all of these different boxes that we need to check to be happy. But I feel like it's about simplifying it. And at the end of the day, if you can check those three boxes and you can be those three things, and I'm not sure what that is to the people out there listening, but figure out what those three things are that are going to sharpen you. And it says in scripture, iron sharpens iron, so one man sharpens another. And that's one of the reasons, man, I'm so honored to be on here with you, Ryan, because that's literally what you have dedicated your life to doing, is to sharpening other men and to getting in the space with them and forcing them into awkward conversations, into uncomfortable conversations. Because if you continue to do things the way that you've always done them, meaning speaking the same ways, doing the same ways, and being the same ways, you're going to get the same freaking results.
No doubt. Do you feel like through this process, and I know it isn't an overnight thing, but do you feel like the process you've taken, that you no longer seek or require your dad's validation or his words of affirmation? Or do you still feel like that's part of what drives you and motivates you?
Yeah, I mean, he's my dad. You know what I mean? It's always going to be important to me. However, man, I played football in front of 120 million people, and their opinions were so important to me. I used to vomit before every single pro football game that I ever played in, because I was scared to death. Yeah, I was scared to death that they were going to figure out I wasn't as good as what they thought I was. I was scared to death that my wife was going to figure out I'm not as good as what she thought I was, and the coaches and my teammates. And so as soon as the game would start, I would be fine. But it's just what your mind does to you before the moment of you actually practicing your skill and performing your skill. I'm brain farting. Where was I going with that?
I was talking about your dad and seeking his approval and validation.
Yeah. So, right. So now the way that I've really kind of constructed my life is, man, I'm playing my life for an audience of one, because we get on social media, Ryan, and you and I have to do it. That's the way that we're able to communicate with other men. I freaking hate it, man. I love sharing my life, but I hate being reminded of everything that I'm not and everything I don't have. because that's what I feel like social media does. And here's the deal.
You
I
mean
am
through comparison
super
or other people's comments, or what do you mean by that?
just everybody's throwing their best stuff out there.
Yeah.
Everybody's putting their best stuff out. Even me and you, Ryan. Like, we won't put out a picture where we look like fat and stupid. You know what I mean? Unless we're actually going to write a caption where we
About how we're fat and stupid, right?
Right.
Sure.
So my point is like, when we want to grab people's attention, we want to put our best writing out there. We want to put our best picture out there. Not that we want people to think we're perfect, but we're playing the game of how Instagram wants us to play.
Sure.
The way you and I do it is completely different than the way we did it 5 years ago. It was much more about the story that we're telling than about grabbing people's attention. But
Right.
now that
The
they have
vanity of
changed
it.
these algorithms, and it's like, you know what I mean? Hey, turn on your post notifications. I'm so sick of asking people to do silly things like that when really, dude, I just want to talk to you, man. I want to have a conversation with you. I want to talk to you about your addiction. Oh, you struggle with drugs. Oh, you struggle with porn. Oh, you cheated on your girlfriend that's now your wife. Me too, man. I've been there, but it makes it so much more difficult to be able to get in their ear because I have 350,000 Instagram followers and some of my posts get 982 likes. I used to get 11,000. And so it's not that I'm like so upset that I'm not getting those impressions. It's just making the mission that you have, it's making the mission that I have so much more difficult. And there's a scripture in I forget what the verse, I know the verse. The verse is, do not be conformed to the patterns of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And I believe that Instagram is absolutely reprogramming people's brains to think, function, and react the way that it wants it to. And the sick part is the majority of society is spending enough time on those platforms to allow that conditioning to take place. And that's a
Agreed.
scary thing, man.
Well, and this is why it's so important. You know, we did that. You invited me out to the Park City thing that we did with the Wim Hof method months ago. This was like right before the whole COVID stuff, so we timed that perfectly.
Like
and then
3 days before.
Yeah, yeah. And then I saw. In fact, I don't know if you know this, but when I came back from that trip, there was talks that they were going to close the Boston airport and the entire city. We were supposed to be in southern Utah for another week, and I cut that trip short after our trip in Park City and came home because I'm like, well, we need to be able to get home.
Right.
If they close it down, like, we got to get home. But that was a very powerful weekend for me because it wasn't riddled with Instagram and social media posts and things like that. It was like a deep connection. And I saw you doing this thing with Jesse and Mitch and some of these other guys, Humble, last week. And I said, that's exactly right. We need to get together with other men, turn off the phone, put it away, you know, and have a deep and meaningful conversation, face to face, shoulder to shoulder, working through some of these things as men. We just don't get it, especially in the light of COVID and these restrictions and masks and everything else. And it's a real shame because it's what we need as men.
Yeah, man. I mean, if you think about it, when we were little kids and we did like little sleepaway camps, remember like how nutritious, and that's, I want to be like really specific with the word that I use. Remember how nutritious that was for your spirit. You know, how when you would go and you would experience something like that, it actually fed you. When you were around other little boys that could do some of the things that you couldn't do, and maybe they could make a fire without a lighter, or maybe they could hold their breath they would go off the high diving board. The point is, it was nutritious for us. It didn't alienate us. People weren't offended that somebody could make a fire and oh, cool, teach me.
Yeah,
and
show me.
And I believe that as we got into college and girls became important and drugs, you know, made our bodies feel good, and alcohol, different things, then we go from that phase of like kind of like brotherhood, of like the reason we gathered around was to chase chicks and to party, right? But then married families, we never go back to that nutritious part of relationship. When we do get together as adults, and I've had this phase, but it's still around like alcohol, and we might smoke a joint or whatever the case may be, but it's not about going and adventuring. It's not about jumping off a cliff. It's not about trying wakeboarding. Have you never tried wakeboarding? It's not about, it's going out and doing things that kind of scare you a little bit. But when you get around guys, like when I got around Humble Humble can do things that I can't do. When you're around Aubrey Darkus can do a lot of things that I can't do, but it challenges me. And the same thing for you, Ryan. When I follow you on Instagram and I see the things that you're doing with your family, and I see the structure, and hear me when I say this, the structure and the order that you have implemented in the assembly line of how you are raising your children and the mission statement that you have for your family, that inspires me. That's nutritious to me. And I feel like a lot of us follow people on Instagram that aren't nutritious for us. They're actually toxic pesticides for the tree that we are. And then when we produce fruit that's not the fruit that we want, we're wondering, well, dude, where are you getting your seed from, cuz? Right?
Yeah, it's funny because, you think about how often, like, I'm on this phone and device and I'm adding people and I'm following this person and following this individual and like what this person has to say. But, when's the last time you actually went in there and said, yeah, this isn't good for me? Like, this guy's message or what he's sharing or what he's preaching, like, I don't need that. And you actually went through and you spent some time unfollowing and removing people from your sphere of influence who are, well, you're talking about scripture again.
That's your mental diet, man.
By their fruits you shall know thee, right? And so you see the fruits that some of these people produce, and you're consuming that toxicity, willingly consuming it, and being inundated and bombarded and living by it.
One of the things, and this is like completely off topic, but I love you and I know that you encourage this. I love your show because it's conversational. But one thing that really bothers me is all of these like expert coaches that are out there making like gobs of money with like mountains of influence, and they ain't got no fruit in their life.
Yeah.
It is setting dudes up for the most ridiculous disappointment ever, because I know some of these guys that have like big followings and make lots of money coaching people because they're ridiculously good at business, but they're so unhappy. And so what ends up happening is people come to this person that is really, really good at this one thing, and they get really, really good at this one thing, but then they end up with a life exactly like that person, where his marriage is strained. It's on the brink of divorce. His children, like, they know their dad, but they're scared to death to come up to their dad because their dad is so busy and their dad's time is so important. I don't ever want to be that dad, but I've been that dad before. You know what I mean? So
yeah.
That's how frustrating it is for you and I to understand that some of these guys that are pursuing what they're pursuing isn't going to make them happy, man. You know what I mean? Like, to me, it's really frustrating because they're spending a lot of their time, and we only got a limited amount of it on this earth. And they're running a race that is going to lead them exactly where the starting line was. It's a freaking hamster wheel, man.
It takes a lot of reflection to do that, though. I was actually walking around in the field with my oldest, Brecken, who, of course, and we were walking around, and I was looking at him because he's getting big, he's leaning out, his muscles are getting developed, he's wearing my stuff, like he put on my shoes, he grabbed my hoodie. I'm like, what the hell is happening? And I remember just listening to him talk as we were just walking around the field, and I thought, dude, I only got 6 more years with you. That's not a lot of time, man. And I'm like, I could waste this time in a blink of an eye focusing too heavily on my business or trying to win people over that have no relevancy in my life, spending all my time and attention on them and investing in them versus investing where I have the most influence, which is with my wife and children. It was a very real wake-up call for me, but I think so many men are on the hamster wheel of life, like busy, I wake up, work, somebody's telling me to do this, I got to do this, I got this task and this project, and I get home and I got to do this, and it's like, stop, time out. It's the same thing in sports, right? You guys all take a break periodically, you time out, let's huddle up, let's like reset here, something is not working right, let's come up with a plan, all right, ready, break, and we get back into it. But that's what we need in life too. We just don't do it.
Well, I mean, I think a lot of men kind of look at themselves the way I looked at myself the majority of my life. I'm 37. For 35 years of my life, I looked at myself as an instrument. Like, what can I do? What can I produce? What can I create? What can I protect? I love your slogan, protect, provide, preside. I mean, that's it. Like, that's what men, that's what we do. And so we're always looking for what can we do. And I think for me, it's a frustration because the way that God designed us to live seems counterproductive to the way that we were raised. Like, if you want to go work hard. So it doesn't make sense to have a Sabbath. It doesn't make sense to take a day off. And so men don't do that. And for 35 years, I didn't do that. but we don't give our bodies and we don't give ourselves what we need. And so we try to pour into our wife, we try to pour into other men, we try to pour into our children from an empty cup. And then when we don't do a good job, or we're irritable with our wife, or we yell at our kids, or we make a poor investing decision, we beat ourselves up about it, but we never gave ourselves what we truly needed to be able to be our best. And so I've learned a lot as a professional athlete, kind of the different parts of being your best. And for me, I needed to be my best for 3 hours every 7 days. And so I created a life that the other 6.5 days of the week, those should be built to make me perform my best on Sunday. And so I didn't pay attention, to going the extra mile. I didn't ask my wife, like, hey, how are you actually doing today? If it was during the season. And so that really kind of formed and conditioned my wife to not really bring problems to me, because, well, if it's during the season, I don't want to bring problems to Steve, because there was a few times during the season when I was younger, 24, 25 years old, where she would bring me a problem on Friday or Saturday, and maybe it would stress me out, or somebody was sick and in the hospital, and I would play poorly on Sunday. And there was actually one time where she brought something to me on Saturday, I played poorly on Sunday, and I got cut on Monday. And so I didn't try to condition my wife that way, but the world conditioned my wife a certain way that, hey, don't bring problems to Steve, because he's going to perform poorly, and then you're going to get fired. And so what that ended up doing was it retarded my growth from being able to be the type of man that has capacity. It singled me. It said, hey, continue to do this, and I'll take all of these different problems away. And so I really didn't start to deal with family problems year round until I was like 34 years old. And so think about how juvenile my skills were as a husband and as a father to handle real-time problems for my family, because I had been guarded for so long, because I had an elite skill that produced. Does that make sense?
It makes total sense. But my question is, how do you balance the need to do? Because, I mean, let's be real. We have responsibility. Right. We have bills. We have kids. We have a job. We have team members. We have people that, yes, we do need to do in order to serve those individuals. So how do you balance the idea of being and doing? Because both are important.
I mean, we're after results. And I think that the shortest way I can say this is detach yourself from the results and stop looking at the scoreboard. I feel like men are constantly looking at the scoreboard. And what happens when you're playing a game? When you're playing a game and you're constantly looking at the score, you are selectively breaking your focus. We're about to go into the fourth quarter of 2000. I'm not sure when this podcast is coming out, but we're about to go into the fourth quarter of 2020 as we record this thing. 2020 has punched all of us in the face. Ryan, I know you had plans and you had events, and those things didn't happen. And the same thing for every single man that is honest. We had family vacations. We had things planned. Some of us missed funerals, weddings, lots of things. This didn't go like we had it planned. So heading into the fourth quarter, you have to ask men, if you don't feel like you're able to balance it right, which is a fallacy. Nobody's ever going to be able to balance anything. It's life mastery, if you ask me. But the point is are you going to continue to have the same offensive schematic going into this fourth quarter? Because when I was playing high school basketball, my high school basketball coach was Larry Bird's high school basketball coach. Real talk.
Are you serious?
He was he's so old, and our shorts were short enough that our nuts could have hung out of them, man. They were so bad.
It depends on your size, though, right? You could laugh at the guys that couldn't drop out of their shorts.
It was bad, but point to this. That put me back on the tracks. We were talking about mentorship.
Yeah, and you were talking about life mastery versus balance, and then also balancing between being being versus doing.
Being versus doing. So I was talking about my high school coach. I lost my train of thought.
I don't know, man. I got you distracted with that image that I shouldn't have planted in your mind. I could tell it was going somewhere good, though, dude.
What was the thing that we were talking about before that?
I can't remember.
We were talking about life mastery. All right, give me another question. I'm sorry. I lost my train of thought.
It's okay. Yeah. So how do you balance now, since we're on the subject of balance? You're running your groups. You've got your supplement company. You've got your fitness stuff. By the way, both my wife and son are doing your fitness program. Again, my wife did it about a year or so ago
Right
and
on.
crushed it. And my
Yeah,
son's
man.
doing it right now with her. He has
Mm,
lost, I think, in the last, I want to say, couple of weeks, maybe 2.5 weeks, has lost
mm.
10 pounds. He's put on a
Come
percentage
on, man.
of muscle. I catch him every once in a while looking in the mirror, and it's not about looking in the mirror. It's that I see that he's proud of himself, and I'm like, this is awesome, man. I
Yeah,
like it.
man.
And he's even
That's
kept
it.
us in line. He's like, Dad, come on now. We're not going to get donuts on
Mm,
Saturday. I'm like, I want a
mm.
donut. He's
That's
like,
it.
nope, we're not doing it. We're not
What
doing it.
what one thing he might really love, because this will allow him to real time the decisions that he's making, how they directly are impacting his physiology, is go get a DEXA scan,
Mm,
DEXA. I took my son to go do one, and it's essentially like an MRI of your whole body. It takes 7 minutes, and it will tell you how much skeletal mass that you have in your left leg versus your right, how much muscle you have in your right arm versus your left, how much adipose tissue, how much weight you carry around that's like visceral fat.
right.
It's really, really cool. So month over month, his body's going to be changing a ton. And so when he's making these decisions and doing these programs, and if you do it every 90 days, man, to me, I believe that's the thing that inspires you and I the most as little boys and as men right now, is momentum. When you can start to see a little fruit from the investment that you're putting in, that's what makes like
No
physical
doubt.
fitness so exciting. And it's one of the reasons that I feel like spiritual fitness is so difficult, because you can't see
How do
your
you see
muscle,
it?
and
How do you quantify
right.
it?
Yeah, that's why I believe that's like a frustration. It's been a frustration for me for a long time, and because when I work hard at business, I have a metric that I can show for it. If I work hard in my body, I have a metric that I can show for it. If I work hard at my marriage, I'm just going to keep it real. I get more action, and that is the result a lot of men are after. You know what I mean? Like, if we're keeping it
Well,
real,
there's nothing
we
wrong
want
with that.
money. Exactly. That is the desire of my heart. I was built this way, and I feel like there is a way that we can design a life to create the desires of our heart for everybody that's in our family. So when you're talking about balance and kind of like swinging back to that, I believe the greatest thing for me in my life when I talk about how do you balance it is, I believe communication is the number one thing that has allowed me to actually figure out the game that I'm playing. Because I grew up thinking that I needed to provide these certain types of things or be this certain type of person for my wife. And I never actually really had a conversation with her about like what's really going to make her happy. Yes, I know she wants a house. She's a mom, with
Of
five
course.
kids.
Of
We'll
course.
probably have more. But point is, like, she needs a house, she needs a car, she needs money to spend. But what is actually going to make her happy? Because I know that I had supplied all those things to her. And more than likely, she's pretty similar to me, meaning like it's not things that are going to make her happy. Like, what are the desires of her? What does she feel like the purpose for her life is? And having those types of conversation, I believe, will save men a lot of through the hoops of what they think they need to do, earn, or become to make their significant other happy. Does that make sense?
It does. One of the moments, I just want to share a little insight into your story, something that I observed of you and your wife. So the last time we got together, like I said, was in Park City. And, we were doing our thing. We were doing the cold water immersion, and we were having fun and having conversations and eating some great food. For vegan food, I'm like, dang, this is pretty
It
good because
was
I like
it
meat.
was
I like
good.
meat, but that was
Yeah,
pretty
me
good.
too.
But there was a moment where I saw you and your wife on that couch in the foyer, that front couch in the foyer by the entryway right
Mm.
there, and I saw you two completely dialed in and totally engaged when everything else was going on. There's people coming in and out, food's being cooked, people trying to ask questions and be engaged, and I saw how present you and her were. And that was
Mm.
very telling for me. That was a very powerful moment. And I think it ties into exactly what you're saying here is make her the focal point. Not all the time, because you have
Mm.
other things to do, and so does she.
Mm.
But
Mm.
finding time to make her the focal point is very, very important.
Yeah, but I think that's really for you and I, man. How much different is our business like week over my family? I feel like if we live life by God's design, meaning like let's do it 7 days at a time. On the seventh day we rest. And so on that seventh day when we're resting, that's when her and I actually connect, and we'll reconnect on vision. And if she can understand, like, and I feel like this is what frustrates maybe a lot of guys, is they feel like, man, I don't have that much time to freaking communicate everything. Well, you don't have to communicate everything. You don't have to tell your wife the why for everything that you're doing if you can enroll her into the grand vision. So if your wife knows where you want to go with your business and your life, you won't need to call and ask permission for these different things that you'll need to do in order to get to understand the grand vision. And so when it comes down to communication, when we get together week to week, we talk about vision, and it changes week to week because, man, pandemic in 2020 forced us to pivot week over week. Man, I have a supplement company called Veritas Labs that was supplementless for 2 months. So like I got wrapped over the head just like everybody else because I couldn't get my manufacturing in. So point is like week over week, if you guys just connect on where you want to go, man, it makes everything else so much easier.
Yeah, definitely. And your life her life better, your life better. I want to go back to something that you had said, because you were talking about metrics. And I know that, for example, you're using the Whoop bands. And I know how important that is to you because you're tracking your recovery and your workouts and your sleep, all of that stuff through it. Do you think it's the metrics that you're measuring that help your ADD? I mean, you talked a lot about that, right? And so, like, what allows that ADD to like focus into a tangible result? Because I look at somebody who has like focus issues. I don't know if that's the right way to say it, but then I see you turn into this elite level athlete, a high performing entrepreneur. How do you turn it from I can't focus as well to but I can kick ass in the areas that I'm engaged with? I hope I'm making sense with that.
Yeah, you're asking me how am I able to have a learning disability and then maybe play a position for 10 years that required ridiculous focus?
That's what I'm saying. Exactly.
Yeah. Well, I mean, so I believe it really, at the end of the day, man, it comes down to practice, but it also comes down to passion. You got to be doing things that you love. And that's not just for people with ADHD. That's for it's not hard to work hard at something that you're passionate about. Like lifting weights. Like, yes, initially I lifted weights because I was super skinny and I didn't want to be that anymore. So it was born from an insecurity. But then, just much like your son, is when you start to get I fell in love with the process of like picking a goal and then going to achieve it. And I believe that's one of the reasons why, man, God has blessed me with favor in the different things that I've gotten really good at setting a goal and then going to get it. So if we really look at like the goal achievement vehicle, like your vehicle is your mindset, your discipline. It's awesome to have like the frame of a Bentley, but if you don't have a great engine in it, that Bentley's not going to go anywhere. And the engine represents your discipline. The discipline is going to take you everywhere you want to go. But if you don't have the right mindset, your discipline won't take you anywhere. And then I think the third component of like the vehicle that's going to take you to where you want to go is the fuel that you put inside of your car, AKA your faith, your belief system, like what you believe is possible. Because you must have a deep level of faith if you want to go out and do things and everybody else around you thinks that you can't. Because that, in order for you to kind of like in order for me to get out of Terre Haute, Indiana, that mentality, I had to have a faith system that would get me enough miles outside of my hometown. But you also had to have the discipline to continue to go those miles when they're freaking hard. But your mindset's the thing that's going to keep the rubber on the road. So I think for me, it's about taking that mindset and putting that into the different components of your life, into your physical, into your mental, into your emotional, into your spiritual, into your financial. Because I mean, you can nail those four, but if your money's not right, money matters, man. And anybody that tells you that it doesn't is lying to you.
Right. Right. Yeah, for sure. Well, and not only that, you're talking about getting out of your hometown. There's friction there too. It's like Stephen Pressfield. Are you familiar with Stephen Pressfield? He wrote.
I'm not.
Yeah, he's an amazing author. Wrote The Gates of Fire about the Spartans. He wrote the War of Art, and he talks about this concept called the resistance. And the resistance shows up in many different forms. You talk about getting out of your hometown. There's people who are probably trying to pull you back because they don't want you to thrive and excel and make them look bad. There's little hiccups and little barriers and hurdles along the way that could deter you and make you turn around. So this resistance shows up in all of these different ways, and we have to be able to find systems, strategies, motivation, faith, like you talked about, to continue to drive on in the path of the resistance that will inevitably show up. It's just going to show up in a lot of different forms.
Mm. But that here's the sick part is the ones that grow comfortable with that resistance, those are the ones that win. Because if you grow comfortable with that resistance, in order to grow comfortable with that resistance, you have to grow stronger. In order to grow stronger, you have to stand under that resistance. I guess do we have enough time for me to share one little analogy?
Of course. Yeah, go for it.
Okay. All right. So I have a breathing coach, Wim Hof breathing coach that I go see once a week. And he's, week over week, I'm improving in that ability. And he was explaining to me how to improve my cardiovascular system by putting tension on it, AKA like resistance, like you said. I can grow my capabilities with that resistance. And the way that he was explaining it to me, I've never heard it explained like this, because I think all of us listening to this right now, man, we want to grow bright. We want to build legacy, aka we want to grow as high. If we're a tree, we want to grow as big and thick of a base as we can, and we want to grow as high as we can. And I always thought, if you want a tree to grow as high and as big as you can, put everything it needs at the base, where the roots are at. So it doesn't have to work hard to get them. But when we're talking about resistance, I learned this from him about 2 weeks ago. And he said, if you actually want your tree to go thick and tall, you actually need to pay more attention to the root system than you do the base of the tree. And what he meant by saying that is, if you want your roots to grow wider and deeper, you need to water where the roots are. You need to make those roots grow there to go there. And so, like, if we really think about that for life, if we have like five areas of our life that we really want to focus on, does it make sense to just give it to ourselves or make ourselves earn it? Resistance, for me, faith to do with my son that you might notice on Instagram is Man Academy. And so we wake up every day and we have daily doses of discomfort and discipline, not pain. Daily doses of discomfort and discipline that will grow us in those areas. As I wake up in the morning, I don't want to do a devotional every day. I don't want to pray every day. I don't want to lift weights every day. I don't want to do my mobility and my flexibility. I don't want to read 10 pages of a personal development or a mindset book. But those are the ways, that's what me and my son are committed to doing 5 days a week. And over the last 60 weeks, this is our 60th week. Over the last 60 weeks, we have done over 30,000 hours of intentional strategic work in those 5 areas. And so just imagine where men could be if they were more intentional and more strategic. And that kind of leads me back to the question you asked me about balance is, you can't balance where you don't have structure, and you can't have success where there is no order. That's why I love the name of your show. That I am so aligned with your mindset in that if you want to grow in these 5 areas of life, man, you have to create resistance, AKA water where you want to go. Don't water where you're at, because you'll stay right there. So if you want to be successful, get around 5 successful people and you'll be the 6th. If you want to be an incredibly present, get around 5 dads that are like that and you're going to be the 6th. If you want to be successful and well-rounded and have a great body, find 5 guys that are like that and you're going to be the 6th.
Well said, brother. What's funny is you were talking about these root systems. My wife, her grandfather grew these amazing tomatoes. And this is just anecdotal. I don't know if it's true or not, but he grew these amazing tomatoes. And I remember one year my wife asked him, how did you, and he's since passed and left us, but how did you grow these how do you grow these amazing tomatoes? And he says, one trick I do every year without fail is he goes over to the tomato plant, and he grabs his spade shovel, and he cuts off a quarter of the root system. Like he literally just digs that shovel, stomps on it, cuts off a quarter of the root system. And his theory, you guys, some of you are probably like botanists and can tell me I'm wrong on this, but that's why I say it's anecdotal. But his theory is because he put the plant under that type of stress, it's what caused the plant to develop a deeper and stronger root system to compensate for the loss of the 25%. And then it bore this amazing fruit that he was well known in the community for on these tomatoes. I think whether it's anecdotal or whether it's true, I think it goes hand in hand with what you're saying. It's the stress at the root system so that root system can really grow and develop and produce the fruit you're after.
Yeah, that's it, man. You nailed it.
Right on, brother. Well, hey, man, I appreciate you. Let us know where we need to go. Go ahead. I think we have a time delay here, but go ahead and share what you wanted to share.
No, we were talking about tension and resistance, and I know we're a little behind on time, but I just wanted to share how important this tension is, because I think we can all agree that we want to create beautiful music with our life. Like, we have 86,400 seconds each day, and for you, dude, think about it. You got 6 summers left with your son. 6 summers. So when he asks you to go play catch, man, dude, you absolutely want to create that music with him, because guess what? When he's gone, you're not gonna have that guy to do the duet with anymore. You know what I mean? You're gonna shift gears to your other son. And point in saying that is, if we want to create that music with our family, if we want to create that music with our time, with our legacy, with our marriage, it's about tension. Talking about resistance, well, let's just replace that word with tension. A piano has 88 keys on it, and the average pound per square inch, like the tension of each one of those keys, is 160 pounds. So if you multiply those, I believe it's like 14,040 pounds of tension. But when it's correctly dialed, that's when beautiful music like Beethoven and the Moonlight Sonata can be created, but it can't unless there's tension in all of the areas. I had 35 years of my life where I had tension in 3 or 4 of the areas required in order to feel really good about the man that you are. But in the last 2 years, I've added, 2 other components, and I've been disciplined where I want to be. But I'm just kind of sharing with you all where my process is and where I feel fulfilled and where I am at my best is when I have tension in those 5 areas of my life. I am able to come on a podcast like this with somebody that I admire a lot and speak my truth confidently, not because I believe I'm better than anybody else, but I believe I have a game plan that is producing fruit in my life.
I love it, brother. That's so powerful. So powerful. That's why I wanted to have this conversation, man. I knew you'd bring it.
Yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate you having me on, man. And we're going to have you on my show. Well, let's record it next week, man. Love you, bro.
Let's do it.
You're an amazing person.
Likewise. Love you too. How do you guys connect with you? If they want to know more about your story, what you're doing, what you're up to, where do you send them?
Yeah, weatherford5.com. That's where you can get supplements, training programs. On Instagram, Weatherford5. Turn on your post notifications. You'll never see any of my posts.
Apparently.
Same thing on Facebook or on Snapchat. But yeah, man, if you really want to get to know my life the best way to do it is just go watch my Instagram story, because I don't spend a lot of time editing my life, but that's how I like it. And that really is connect with men out there, is not to show you how perfect my life is but to show you the process that I'm in.
Right on, man. We'll sync up all the guys. As always, great to have this conversation. We'll do it again next week, and we'll get you out here to Maine at some point. But I was going to say, I told you earlier, I was a little disappointed you were on the East Coast, but you were far enough away that I gave you a little bit of a pass on that. But we'll get you out here next time, brother. There.
Yeah, man, I'm committed to it. You have my word that I will come visit you on the farm, man.
I have no doubt, man. We'll talk soon, brother.
All right, cuz.